Another week starting. Here in the Republic of Ireland, a week is starting with wind howling round the house, skies grey, intermittent torrential rain. Hey, that's summer, huh? If, we look around the world, it's not unusual to be getting crazy weather right now. I recognize that. I've not lived here long enough to know whether this is really crazy weather, but the people who have been in the village, some of them, you know, for generations, do look up at the sky a little bewildered and go, well, maybe it'll be nice in September. The weather around the world is going mad. Utterly mad. And if anyone wants to say, oh, but there's always been changes in weather, this is nothing unusual, and oh, climate change doesn't exist, and oh, it was invented by the Chinese, and oh, it's just a fluctuation because I saw a video on YouTube and it happens all the time, then please sod off and lock yourself in a small room somewhere. You are entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to say sod off and lock yourself in a small room somewhere so the rest of us don't have to hear your misinformed dribblings. Oh, but you're in the pay of Big Pharma or Big Energy or Big Brother or Big Beryl or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'm a bit frustrated today. The British government decides that it's going to issue 100 more licenses for the extraction of oil and gas. I mean, what can you do? What can you do? It is beyond stupid. And no doubt the gutless vacuums at the head of the Labour Party will say, oh, we're going to issue 120 new licenses. We can be more right-wing than you can. Actually, the Tories have got form on this. Thatcher back in the 80s, she was a scientist. She was trained as a scientist. She saw the science of climate change. She knew that it was a problem. And she made a couple of important speeches. She was one of the first world leaders to really, or Western world leaders anyway, to really alert the world to the impending danger of climate change. I think, if I remember rightly, the European Union got a speech from her. And then the United Nations or someone, I can't remember, but two big speeches. And then she was told that it was going to cost her support base, industry, money to mitigate climate change. God, how little money it would have cost back then. But anyway, it would have cost money. So she shut up about it. To think about what that means, she literally thought it was more important to placate her support base and to get money into the Tory party than to try to save the future of humanity from an unfolding catastrophe. So when Rishi Sunak goes, oh, we're going to, have 100 new licenses, you go, yeah, you lot have got form. Anyway, that's what's making me grumpy. I'm going to not be grumpy. I'm going to go for a walk in the raging gale and blow these thoughts right out of my head. But first, we have a bibliomancy. I dip into a book, I find a sentence, and one sentence isn't going to tell me anything about the book, but any sentence can tell me something about myself. Today, I picked a great big book, look at a great big one, off my bookshelf, John Brunner's Stand on Zanzibar. It's one of the SF Masterworks series. I don't think I've ever read a book in this series that hasn't been really good. Some of them stick with me, some of them don't. It must be 10, 15, 20 years since I read this. And frankly, I remember nothing about it. Got a nice, sometimes you have read a book and you get a nice feeling about it. I have a nice feeling about it. But I remember nothing about it. Apparently, there are 7 billion plus humans crowding the surface of 21st century Earth. It's an age of intelligent computers, mass market psychedelic drugs, politics conducted by assassination, scientists who burn incense to appease volcanoes, all the hysteria of a dangerously overcrowded world portrayed in a dazzlingly inventive style. That doesn't sound like science fiction. That sounds like a reportage. Anyway, here we go. Let's find a sentence and see what it says. I'm going to go into page 103. The analogy of the prostitute who sells her body for gain is one which a few generations ago might have been regarded as distasteful by a great number of people. The analogy of the prostitute who sells her body for gain is one which a few generations ago might have been regarded as distasteful by a great number of people. The analogy of the prostitute who sells her body for gain. It's funny, isn't it, how, as he is pointing out, Over time, what we consider distasteful and what we consider it distasteful to refer to shifts and changes. And many people who, like me, would have grown up at a time where the use of the word prostitute would be laden with moral and ethical disapproval, and that somebody who was a prostitute was somehow less than a full human being, certainly a decent human being. And then with time, you begin to explore the power dynamics, whether or not it is right to condemn someone for making decisions that either they choose or more likely feel obliged to make in order to feed themselves or feed their children. What about the people who cause the demand for prostitution? And then you move to questions about, is it better to have that than to have legalized prostitution and so on. And so things become complex as we move away from simple judgments like non-prostitutes good, prostitutes bad. So we move away from simple judgments and we move towards trying to engage with the world through complexity. We certainly move away from what is perhaps tasteful or distasteful, but we also perhaps move closer to at least a deeper understanding and perhaps a compassionate understanding that our judgments are frankly not worth much, which of course makes me feel right now a little chastened, because those climate deniers who I just dismissed as buffoons who should sit in a room alone and talk to no one, they speak from a place of their truth. They are trying to defend or hold on to or even promote something. I disagree profoundly, and we need to beat their argument, but we need to engage with compassion. So if you think these weathers are just fluctuations, please do some more reading, and if necessary, have a conversation. Let's do it respectfully. We must learn to engage with each other and the world away from simple moral and ethical judgments, ideological, political judgments, spiritual, interpersonal, political judgments, whatever, and embrace the complexity of not knowing multiple perspectives and working together to try to find a way to get through the mess that we and the generations who came before us have created. I'm going to go, well, actually, I've got a lot of work to do, but then I'm going to go walk in the storm below all this slightly spiraling melancholy, way out to sea, where with a bit of luck, it'll feed some fish. I hope your Monday goes very, very well.